all for joining us. My name is Vanessa Haight, and I am the Executive Director of Elliott Park Neighborhood, Inc. EP&I proudly serves our neighborhood with a mission to build community vitality by connecting and empowering neighbors. This year, we are focusing on food insecurity, land use and development, as well as supporting our small business community. Part of our neighborhood falls in Ward 6, and we believe this election is very important to the future of our neighborhood and to the city. I am honored to be here tonight with the candidates for the Ward 6 City Council election. Thank you all for being here with us. Before we begin, I'd like to share a few reminders about the August 11th election. If you are planning to vote with an absentee ballot, you only have a few days left to make that request. Otherwise, if you're planning to vote in person, be sure to confirm your polling location, as it may have changed. This includes the Elliott Park Rec Center. I will now turn it over to Dan Collison, who will provide an overview of our evening before we begin with questions. Thank you. Dan?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being a part of tonight's shared forum. On behalf of the Easttown Business Partnership and the Minneapolis Downtown Council, we are so pleased to have you. And first of all, thank you to Vanessa and the Elliott Park Neighborhood Incorporated Board and all who are so passionate about the Elliott Park neighborhood. For those who may wonder, the Easttown Business Partnership has been around for 40 years and has started in Elliott Park and then broadened to include downtown East, and is functionally the east side of the downtown of Minneapolis, which has seen a lot of revitalization and redevelopment, and at the same time is very concerned that it be holistic. And so as we enter into tonight's conversation and allowing and engaging all of these wonderful candidates about who will be the next council member for Ward 6, the Easttown Business Partnership is very passionate about working with and supporting neighborhoods and being alongside all who serve at the city in terms of the value and the vibrancy of all the neighborhoods. And Elliott Park being one of the 6 neighborhoods that are a part of Ward 6, we're grateful to have the candidates invest tonight's conversation and have some very important questions that sort of reach to all pieces of it. So on behalf of the Easttown Business Partnership, thank you to the Minneapolis Downtown Council, who is providing all the production support and will be handling the recording and broadcasting this after the event is over. And then finally, thank you to all of the candidates who have given up their night to share their perspective and to answer a few key questions that we have in front of them. The format is going to be very straightforward, but also very timed. We have 10 candidates, and I believe we have 9 with us here now tonight. And so they're going to begin by offering 2 minutes of just an overview of their campaign, who they are, how they will see Ward 6 move into the future. After the opening 2 minutes, we'll then break the group into 2 groups, and I will ask a question to one group and then ask a question to the second group. And then we'll pivot to another question and do the same thing so that we have no more than 5 people per group who can just kind of popcorn answer what's on their mind. And then we'll wrap up our time tonight in this 90-minute forum with each of the candidates offering final and closing comments that will again just be a 1-minute final speech. So to all the candidates, thank you again for being here tonight. We do ask for your brevity. I have a very large clock sitting in front of me, and I will be needing to interrupt as necessary because I know you have passion and you have things to say. And so we are grateful to have those things be heard as well. As we kick off, why don't we just go ahead and dig in? Vanessa, unless there's anything else you have to add, we can go ahead and dig into the first round, which is just an opening 2-minute speech from each of the candidates. So if that's okay, why don't we begin with AJ Awed. Please share your 2 minutes of overview of your campaign.
Thank you for that question. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you to all the organizations involved in actually facilitating this town hall. Simply put, I got involved in this race because there was a call to act, and there was a call for the community to get real true representation. I think I'm the only candidate and the only campaign that is coming with a strong community backing in terms of trying to make sure that we have competent individuals and individuals that are passionate and understand the issues. I'm focused on bringing the voices of the working class and the people at large to City Council. I know there's a lot of candidates in this race, and tenure it stretches and has a wide spectrum. But specifically put, when we're talking about this leadership position that all of us are envisioning to take, we need to remember that we need a candidate that understands the policies deeply. And for me, I have a deep, extensive background in policy in terms of understanding the issues of affordable housing, which I want to make sure public housing stays public. I want to make sure that the opioid crisis is very much an issue that is addressed and addressed quickly. But more importantly than anything else, I want to be that driver of the community's issues and bringing it to city council. I hope that I can get the support of the community at large, and I hope that individuals are ready to try something that is bold in terms of not asking, but actually demanding what is required and the types of investments. I look forward to today's town hall. It's very important to talk about the economic development aspects and as it relates to the overall, health of our small businesses and our minority communities as we talk about developing and looking in the future. And for me, I'm trying to emphasize that this campaign this whole time has been deeply grounded in making sure that the community is being heard, but more importantly, that the community ultimately is going to decide the fate of this election. So I look forward to doing that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, AJ. I appreciate that. Next up is Abdurrazak Bihi, who goes by Bihi. We invite you to share your overview. Bihi is still muted, so let's.
Can you hear me now?
Great.
Hi, my name is Abdurrazak Bihi. I have lived in the ward and worked as a community advocate and organizer for the past 24 years. I bring along a great long experience. I have done social services. I've helped people find affordable and low-income housing for over the last 2 decades. I worked with the healthcare settings in our community in order to create access for new Americans to access healthcare. I enroll people, new Americans, in healthcare and other programs. I work with youth and I advocate for programs and jobs for young people. I'm a great fan of a Step Up program of the city of Minneapolis. That's where my second daughter is actually working right now. And I would love to have the passion to expand that program to all the young people instead of being out on the street. My passion is to bring people and communities together, whether I get elected or not. This is what I've been doing for a long time. I would like to see the labor shortage that we are going to face in 2040. We need to act quick. We need to invest people in our ward to really build them with the resource, give them the resources to train them and give them the skills. I hate to see our downtown business community bringing people with IT background from across the world, while we have talented young people, females and males, in our community that need the opportunity to be trained and given that opportunity in order to work for us in downtown. So my passion again is to really bring those communities, all those wards together and work as a one community and enforce the resource and increase the resources for our neighbor organizations.
Thank you so much, Bihi. I really appreciate that. Next up is AK Hassan. Share with us your vision.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is AK Hassan, Park Board Commissioner for the District 3 and a two-term Vice President of Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board. Since coming to Minneapolis in 2008, I have dedicated myself to service of others. I grew up in the largest refugee camp in Kenya and migrated to the US with my family, living in Fedora Village neighborhood. My lived experience have been difficult, but they have also been uniquely American. After becoming a community organizer and activist, and with the DFL, I became very interested in local government. Here in Minneapolis, some of the things that I'm brought to light during my term in the Park Board after being elected in 2017 are I spearheaded a historic investment in our youth, increasing youth programs by over $1 million. I was also successful in securing $2 million donation for the development of new parkland. I'm excited. I was also proud to have led the selection of the process of our current superintendent, Al Bengora, as well. I'm excited to bring the skills and experience, my collaborative work with approach on the Minneapolis Park Board to to the important social justice work at hand at Minneapolis City Council. We need strong, progressive, and young voice in the City Council to change the script of what's possible. And that's why I want to pass rent control and protect affordable housing, support our small business to grow community wealth, provide dignity for the unsheltered homelessness through strong housing and opioid response, and work hand in hand with community to place the path of public safety in our city. Thank you so much for inviting me and having me. I know as a former president of my neighborhood, Ventura Village, I know how important is this kind of meetings and this kind of forums. I thank you, everyone, for putting this together, and I look forward for the forum tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate that. Nabiha Mohammed, please share with us your 2 minutes overview of your campaign.
All right. I want to thank the Minneapolis Downtown Council, Elliott Park neighborhood for putting together this forum. I want to thank my fellow candidates, and finally, I want to thank the residents of Ward 6. As you all know, the job of the City Council is very serious and consequential. This requires a high level of competency, and as such, I believe I am the most qualified because, again, I am the most educated as I'm pursuing my second master's degree after getting the first one 12 years ago. I'm the most experienced as I have leadership experience dating back to more than 18 years ago during my military service. I'm a small business owner and understand the many challenges small businesses face. I'm a hands-on manager and I take practical approach to problem solving. I'm a parent of 8-year-old twins and know very well the struggles of parenting and finding enrichment programs. I am a progressive Democrat, and as someone who grew up in New York City, I see our diversity in Ward 6 as an asset, not a liability. It is for these particular reasons that I'm running for Minneapolis City Council, and I politely ask for the residents of Ward 6 to vote for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nabiha. Suud Olat, please share with us your vision and your campaign.
Thank you very much. Do you hear me well?
Here's great.
I would like to thank Elliott Park Neighborhood, East Town Business, and Minneapolis Downtown Council for hosting us this forum tonight. And my name is Suud Olat. As I said, I am an activist, community organizer, and currently serving as congressional district leader for the One Campaign, anti-poverty organization based in Washington, D.C. When our governor was in Washington, D.C., our current governor, I was able to meet him in Washington, D.C., advocating for how we can continue our Congress to fund millions of young girls who don't have access to better education. I work with our delegation, 8 members of Congress, our senators in the national government, to work on how we can improve how we give the foreign aid. As a member of a congressional district leader for the One Campaign, I'm a recipient of a Health and Human Services Award in the state of Minnesota. I live in among you in this beautiful and one of the oldest neighborhoods in this beautiful city of Minneapolis, Elliott Park. On top of that, I'm well aware the challenge facing this neighborhood. Over 59% of our households bring in less than $35,000. 38,000 of our residents fall below the poverty line, which is a big problem. One of the main challenges that you and me have is we do not have full service grocery stores in our neighborhood. And we feel that we have a big challenge. And we've been removed downtown rapid and expansion. And also in the Minneapolis comprehensive city plans. So that's what inspired me to run for this office. And I'm here to represent our neighborhood, which I call home, Elliott Park, and the city of Minneapolis at the City Hall, as I did the world's most poorest at the halls of the United States Congress, working with the 8 Minnesota congressional districts, Republican and Democrats. And that's what I learned working with teamwork, bringing communities together so that we can improve the lives of world's most poorest. When I saw this vacant seat,
Thank you,
I
Sued.
see you need to bring back your
I'm
advocacy
sorry to
here.
cut you off, Sued. Thank you very much. I appreciate all of those comments, and I need to keep moving. Jamal Osman, please share with us your 2-minute overview.
Hello, my name is Jamal Osman. Thank you so much for inviting us today. A vibrant downtown benefits the entire city of Minneapolis, and we are all working hard to make sure that downtown can open again when it's safe. It's been exciting to watch last decade, how many residents moved in downtown, and the new businesses that are opening up, and as well as the people that work in downtown. As you know, Ward 6 and downtown have a very special relationship. Just last year, the city completed Summertime Crossing, a little bridge between downtown and Cedar Riverside. In Ward 6, we need to do more building like this to connect the two communities, a thriving downtown and Ward 6 residents, which brings a lot of residents and a lot of people are hardworking people that can go to work and get a job and work in downtown. As we work to help neighbors and the border between Cedar and Riverside, we can also help downtown thrive. We can work to make sure downtown success can help drive success neighborhood throughout our city, including Ward 6. Minneapolis is the strongest for all stakeholders, I believe, a large, small businesses, residents, and nonprofits, all of us, when we work together. We need to build that relationship and continue building that relationship and making it more livable, workable, payable place that we can all enjoy and have that wonderful community that we all deserve. And I will play that role if I'm elected. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Jamal. Alex Palacios, please share with us your 2-minute vision overview.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Dan and the Easttown Business Partnership, Vanessa with Elliott Park Neighborhood, Inc., and Dana with the Minneapolis Downtown Council. So happy to be here and honored to share this space with all these amazing candidates. My name is Alex Palacios. I use they, them pronouns, and I believe that I am best suited to represent the interests and the voices of Ward 6. I lived in the Elliott Park neighborhood on 10th and Portland for about a year. I've also served at the Minnesota Council for HIV/AIDS Care and Prevention, which is hosted by the Health Services Building on Portland and 6th. And I myself go and see my doctor at the Hennepin Healthcare Campus. So I have roots in this neighborhood, and I'm so proud to have them. One of the things that I think we all have in common, as is stated by the Easttown Business Partnership, is that we all seek to be conveners and connectors. And we have some challenges in that, right? We have some challenges stemming from the current pandemic. We have some challenges stemming from the economic downturn that has caused. We also have some challenges in terms of the way that the city sees and prioritizes equity, anti-racism. There are so many concerns about public safety and public health. And as somebody who works in public health, who has served on councils, who has lived in this community, I believe that I am best prepared to tackle these issues in a way that really centers the voices of the community. Ultimately, it's not about my vision. It's about what you need and what you want. And I am excited to have the conversations, the difficult and challenging and inspiring conversations that will move Elliott Park, our entire ward, and our entire city forward as we face this crossroads in our history. Thank you so much for your time, for allowing me into your homes, your spaces, and I look forward to the event tonight.
Thanks so much, Alex. Really appreciate that. Joshua Schumann, can you please share with us your vision in 2 minutes?
Yes, thank you, everyone. I would like to thank our hosts, the Elliott Park Neighborhood Association and the Downtown Coalition. I am Joshua Schumann. I am the Green Party candidate for the Ward 6 seat. I have been a resident of Ward 6 since last October, living in the Stevens Square neighborhood. And I currently am one of the elected members of the Green Party's Central Committee for the state level and member of several different committees, working to defund CPS, working on community safety and the environment. I've worked on several campaigns here in the cities, and I'm proud to say we are working towards eliminating pesticides in our parks. So I believe my vision for the city is the vision of the people, listening to what they have to say and putting their issues first, and not big corporations and PACs and super PACs. Hopefully, we envision our city to be a framework for other cities. We are facing so many different challenges through COVID, through our community safety issues, through the death of George Floyd, and the revolution afterwards that are affecting many other cities across the country. So I hope that tonight we will have a great dialogue about the economic impact to our city. And I'd like to also thank all the other candidates for taking part in this. We have a lot of different ideas, but there is a common goal for the betterment of our constituents, which should be a top priority for any elected official that we elect. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joshua. I really appreciate that. Cecile O'Shea, can you please share with us your vision in 2 minutes?
Hello?
Hi.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Yes, hi. My name is Cecile O'Shea. I am running in the special election of Ward 6. And I wanted to first thank Vanessa and Dana for hosting us today. I actually live in Elliott Park, 15th and 10th. And it's an honor to be here. Listen, hey, I am running for this because, first of all, running for office is not an easy decision, but as a mother of 3 Black children, I have to do everything in my ability to make sure that they live in a community that just judges them for the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And that I ensure that I do my part to fight climate change for not only my children, but all the children of Minneapolis, so that we have a fighting chance. I am running for Minneapolis City Council because I can no longer sit idly by while we see thousands of our residents sleeping in homeless encampments, while this city provides millions of dollars to developers to gentrify our communities. I have been around for a long time. I was appointed by Governor Dayton to serve the Minnesota Juvenile Justice Advisory Council. I was a member of the Neighborhood Community Engagement Commission for the city of Minneapolis. I am a founder of a nonprofit organization. I served and co-created the Cultural and Ethnic Community Leadership Council, as well as the National Coalition of the Juvenile Justice for the Midwestern region. I am serving the U.S. Global Leadership as we speak. I love this work. I have been involved for a long time, and as a woman, as a mother, I wanted to continue serving because that's something that I really care about, and I am really passionate about.
Thank you so much, Cecile. We really appreciate your comments. And the last one in our opening round is Mike Doherty. Can you please share with us your opening speech for your campaign?
Thanks, Dan. And also thanks, Dana and Vanessa, your councils, your neighborhood groups, for your efforts. I'd also, having now, I think this might be the last forum, and having witnessed the other candidates, I want to thank everybody for their input. I don't think there's a stinker in the bunch. Knowing this is a bit of an elevator ride in these opening statements, to know a little bit more about my background, my resume, you can check out thompsondoherty.com. I'm honored to be part of that endeavor for about the last 20 years. And I'm deeply invested in Phillips West, and I find it an honor to have stepped out into this arena. When you get on that site, you can click on a Star Tribune ad that really gives a good, fair synopsis. But now going on to really, I think, maybe beating the drum of some of what you've heard in the other forums. I'm really for measured results, leadership with pragmatism. I think the candidates, I've heard from them, they all have great ideas. The one that I think separates me, and I hope not to my discredit, but just looking at the idea of defunding law enforcement, the police, that's something that I cannot support. I see it as something that does separate me from some of the fray. I'm all for reorganization and restructuring. I do think the existing council is making great moves. There was a small move this week, I think, to eliminate a department. It might be 2 or 3 people, but it's at a time where I believe the budget is we're 156
Mike,
down.
I hate to interrupt you, but we gotta move on. Maybe you can include the rest of your comments in the closing.
You
speech.
got it. I didn't mean to get on the soapbox, but I
That's the
guess
whole point of
wrapping
tonight,
it up.
right?
Yeah. So thank you.
Yes,
I'll make
great.
time for the.
Appreciate it. So here's how we're going to move into our second phase now, which is going to include a couple 12-minute rounds with half of the candidates. So I just want to be very clear for the candidates here that the first candidate group is going to include AJ, Bihi, AK, Nabiha, and Mike. So to you candidates only, I have a question for you related to economic development. And here it is. Economic development at the neighborhood level is crucial for addressing both neighborhood vitality and more equitable outcomes for business leaders of color. What are some of your thoughts about the city's Community Planning and Economic Department role, or CPED, in this work? And what are some of the ways the city of Minneapolis can advance inclusive economic development on both city scale, I would insert now, ward area and neighborhood relevance? So again, just to AJ, Bihi, AK, Nabiha, and Mike, go for it. And try to be brief so that all the candidates have a chance to offer comments. I think Nabiha is trying to talk, yeah.
Okay, so as a small business owner, I am intimately familiar with the struggles many minority business owners face currently. Unfortunately, COVID-19, the civil unrest following the barbaric murder of George Floyd has made a bad situation even worse. While we can talk about CPED was doing pre-COVID and what it plans to do going forward, the reality of the matter is COVID-19 and the civil unrest has severely curtailed any progress minority-owned businesses have made in the past decades. While I applaud the efforts in the city and the state, let's just be honest here, I was the only candidate that was invited to testify regarding the proposed Promise Act. In the case you're not familiar with the Promise Act is a comprehensive plan to help businesses rebuild and recover following the damages following the civil unrest and COVID-19 pandemic. As you know, many of those businesses that were affected were Black, immigrant, and communities of color owned. Here in Ward 6, we are not just looking to rebuild Lake Street, we are looking to create a better and more vibrant Lake Street. Just a few days ago, I met with women entrepreneurs, and we discussed the ways to empower women entrepreneurs and get more tailored training to help them build and expand their businesses. CPED can help with these programs. At the end of the day, I believe it takes the city, state, and federal governments to come together, working together to help bridge that gap that exists between minority businesses and other businesses. within the city of Minneapolis, we need to go beyond the set-asides that currently exist, but really include minority and women-owned businesses early in the contracting process and to help them define the RPFs.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, so if I could just jump in, I'm guessing this is like a dialogue that the candidates could have.
This is just a popcorn. There's no.
I love it. I love it. That it's different. It's different than the other format, so that's beautiful.
Okay, sorry, that was the last one.
Oh, that's great.
No, I mean, if I got to piggyback off of Nabiha, some of the things that definitely I would say I support overall. But when we're really talking about, at least how I heard the question, you know, how CPAT is working and how they plan to execute on economic development, specifically as we talk about inclusivity, right? For me, my modus operandi or the rules that I really follow, the principles that are deep, is it needs to be deeply rooted in community, meaning the community should be involved in every step of the process, from the onset to the closure and the finalization of it. That's why, again, when it comes to development projects like Lot A, I have always been saying that the way that they approached it and the way that we think about these issues is a little bit twisted in the current model. And right now, when we're talking about community engagement, some of the questions later on are going to really be focusing on neighborhood associations, just like Elliott Park, and really having that connection with them. But, you know, I think when we're talking about distinguishing ourselves a little bit and you know, speaking truth to power, honestly, the 24 comp plan, with many of my colleagues supporting it, is going to have devastating impacts on economic development as it relates to the minority and small businesses that are really, really diverse in Ward 6 and throughout the city of Minneapolis. So when we're talking about this, we need to put in, I'm the only candidate that's proposing a commercial rent control. This, of course, is going to focus on making sure that there's consistency and volatility, obviously, in the small business market, making sure that we maintain them there. But, you know, for the talks of economic development, right now with everything that happened with the uprisings and the continuous pressures of gentrification, we got to really focus on how do we maintain our small businesses and how do we give them opportunities. I'm the only candidate that's really asking and talking about the new Green Deal and making sure that we invest in small businesses so they can renovate and transition into green technology. And again, when we're talking about, you know, economic development, right? When city council members or candidates, you know, get on camera or we speak about on the campaign trail, it's very abstract, but for me, it's very, very concrete. The community should have the final say when we're talking about what projects we're going to be considering and what are the things that the community actually needs. So that's my focus on how the department should be working with city council and making sure to hold them accountable to that. And again, I'm going to be focusing on how we're going to try to mitigate the 24 comp plan, which is, again, going to up zone many of the city, and many of our small businesses are going to be negatively impacted.
Thank you, AJ. AK or Bihi?
Yeah, well, I can jump then. Well, BTAP is the city department within CBET that connects local business with research and technical expertise. I've worked with and I know a little bit. I'm familiar with it. My family owns a business in the neighborhood of Enjoy Village, and Elliott Park. My family grew up there. So by expanding research and partnerships within BTAP and within our community service providers who have cultural literacy in the communities they serve, we can create more equitable outcomes for the entrepreneurs of color. We also have a great opportunity to expand our reach and partnerships within Bergen, culturally diverse and LGBTQ+ business, minority business owned and across the world. CPAD is a partner in this work, but we also have ability to expand this through contracts, procurement needs, making sure race equity drives this aspect of our work is key. And it puts our money where our mouth is. So if we as a city continue and not to talk about the importance of it, we fail in. So we need to utilize the amazing service and goods that our local diverse business owners offer. In summary, I support, I think CBET can do a much better job to support businesses within expertise they need to drive and expanding contracts and procurement to lift up that diverse business owners in our community can drive, and which is one that makes our neighborhood unique in our world.
Thank you, AK. I appreciate that. Bihi and Mike, you up for a few comments?
Yes. You know, it's really very easy to say the catchwords, but the actual importance of small businesses in our communities is very important. The number of people they employ, the number of families they support. So right now, some of my colleagues said, yes, we have come out of COVID. We have come out, not come out yet, the worst part of it, but we also had the aftermath of the murdering of George Floyd. A lot of businesses were lost, and we really need to find a program, and the programs that are out there already, because from my experience working, volunteering with West Bank Business Association, getting all those resources they really manage to help businesses with are sometimes difficult. Some businesses, they cannot even apply for it. So we want, and the governor just signed about, I think it was a $60 million that to help businesses. And I think the policy and the language that comes with those money that usually, you know, been under the name of people of color businesses or women, the language we need to watch out the language we use, because some immigrant businesses cannot really be eligible for that if we look at the language. Number two, I would like to see, I was part of the conversation a long time ago with you, Dan, in downtown Minneapolis. There are a lot of spaces that are available, but they're costly for people of color. So we need to continue that plan that East Downtown and the Downtown Council really spearheading to create that space, empty space, where the landlords are far away somewhere around the world. We need those spaces to be utilized and encourage people of color and small businesses to get into that space and use that. First of all, we got taxes from it. First of all, we say one Minneapolis, the diversity, we need to see that diversity in Minneapolis retail business. And the third is we need to create business incubators in our spaces to help people in Elliott, in Seward, in Cedar Riverside, and all over Stevens Square and everywhere, Phillips West, to help them to really, there are a lot of inspiring business women and men. 80% of the Somali mall business are owned by women. But we need to have those trainings, and we need to have to upscale them. And like we have done back in about 20 years or 15 years ago, I worked with Artie Rayback in the global market to include, bring all those people together. We need to actually not only help them, but we also need to invest in business. The third one is to bring downtown expertise in business, those corporations, to forge a partnership with a small business and CBED to really, CBED should lead this, and the neighbor organizations, to really train and help and invest in small businesses in our community. I think small business is really a way to go, especially in the community where I live. All those cultural food and cultural businesses that has language and that don't have language and cultural barrier for many, is important that we support them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bihi. Mike, do you have a few things to offer before we move to group two?
Yeah, I'll just say a couple of quick technical things. I know when I moved into this neighborhood, I remember the microloans that the CPED was making generously available. I found it really hard to apply for that. And I'm kind of thinking, I can't imagine somebody else having to go through that too. I'd like to see that connect more to mentorship programs. I think it's a great way to connect all the small businesses that I'm hearing about with the other candidates as well as mine to those who live in the neighborhood. How great would it be to have them as part of our businesses and somehow tie that in? One specific thing, and then I'll leave it alone here, but when we look at redevelopment, I know at one of the forums, if not two, the African Village up a couple times. I found that so novel when I looked it up and really didn't hear much about it in Phillips, at 26th and Park. But it was interesting that something on the face of it that just seems like such an attractive thing, that to bring people from outside our area in and to be a part of this would be great. I'm finding that it hit a lot of resistance, and it sounds like maybe it was a bit in its approach. I'm now wondering, thinking pragmatically, what is the reality of that now after the George Floyd tragedy, after what's happened on Lake Street? That, maybe it's some of because it's close to my center of gravity, but that's where I see us stopping the bleeding, so to speak, is looking at how we're going to redevelop Lake Street, commercial, affordable housing on the top floors, maybe making zoning a little easier to go more dense, I think, which is part of the 2040 plan. I would support that because I'm finding that we're limiting, I guess, some density options that would really help out the economic community.
Okay,
There's a couple.
Yeah, I hate to cut you off, and I know, Dviha, you want to have a comment. We need to switch to the second group. What I would love for you to do is to maybe hold, if you've got a rebuttal or a thought, when we move to a question Vanessa is going to ask, which is about neighborhood funding. If you could find a creative way to weave in maybe a follow-up question into that, that would be helpful. I just want to keep moving here with the same question to a different set of 5 candidates. So Sued, Jamal, Alex, Joshua, and Cecito. Economic development at the neighborhood scale is crucial to addressing neighborhood vitality, and we desire more equitable outcomes for business leaders of color. What are your thoughts about the CPED department in this role and the way the city of Minneapolis can advance inclusive economic development on both city scale and neighborhood relevance? And I will comment for those who just were in that previous panel, you can put stuff in the chat if you want, if there's something else you want to follow up for someone else to read. So there we go. Next 5. What are your thoughts on this? And there's no order, about 2 minutes each, I think is really helpful guideline.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in first if I may. So I really truly believe that combining, green transportation with a safer streets initiative is really a great way to address these concerns in a more holistic way. It reduces the need for parking and saves significantly on construction, right? Making it more accessible for all of us. And this creates naturally occurring affordable housing. So that's certainly something to look at. But when I lived on the corner of 10th and Portland, I was living right across the street from a CVS, right? And suddenly it had to close because it just could not afford to be there anymore. What did that mean? It translated to a lot of people no longer having access to things like pharmaceuticals. It translated to people not having access to certain goods and resources. But it certainly translated to making it harder for people to live in that area. So investing in clinics, in pharmaceutical distribution places, right, in recreation centers, again, that are meant to help convene people, and doing it in a way that is sustainable, and doing it in a way that promotes public safety, that promotes public health, right, and also in a way that promotes sustainability across sectors.
Thanks, Alex. Others?
Yeah, I think, you hear me?
Yep.
As a candidate and someone who lives at the Elliott Park and has done work with the city of Minneapolis, I strongly believe that community plan and economic development plays a crucial role for planning and economic development for our city, so that our city can continue to grow and be a more vibrant, livable city and a welcoming for all. But however, the CPED has not addressed some of the most important issues. If I start with housing, to insecurity, homelessness, displacement, and gentrification. And as we all know, we have one of the widest inequities in home ownership in the entire nation, which is very sad for our beautiful city of Minneapolis. And I believe, some of ideas that I believe CPED can do better. They can institute more aggressively fees on big money development to generate more funds for the Affordable Housing Trust fund. The other thing CPED can do is to work with the renters, low-income residents, and community of color, neighborhood organizations, by taking responsibility for the agents of this housing crisis. Lastly, I believe if you elect me, the things I work with the one campaign, working with the national level, different Republicans, Democrats in the Minnesota delegation, what I learned was, we need, teamwork and leaders that can build a team. CPED must adopt a new strategy and standards for what's considered affordable housing, so that we can bring solutions for those, durable solutions for those crises. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sue. Appreciate that.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yes, so I agree with most of my friends in this group. I just wanted to add that we need equitable economic development. I was a small business owner myself, but I lost that business. I used to own a retail store, and because of a lot of the and it's a couple of years ago, so there was not a lot of help, and when you have to understand how the whole system works, and culturally speaking, I know how to do it in my own culture. I know how to do the Somali way of a small business, and so all of that. But then if you don't have the right way to do it, a lot of people lost that, and a lot of people are not able to sustain it. And so I think from my experience, what needs to happen in terms of economic development for prioritizing. I've seen the most of the groups who have the means necessary to build not their businesses, but at the same time to navigate the system they understand. And so a lot of times what we forget is the needs of a small mom and pop shops, and this must change. I support a grassroots initiatives to invest in small businesses, especially Black-owned businesses. We need to support our entrepreneurs. I know in the East African culture, that is a norm. But if you don't have the way, if you don't have the support, I think a lot of people lost that. And so not only in downtown corridor, but in our neighborhoods, such as Sewer neighborhood, Cedar neighborhood, Ventura Village, Elliott Park, all of those groups and all of those neighborhoods are not able to, especially with the COVID-19 and what happened, a lot of people are home, and all of those small businesses are not able to function and thrive because of it. So what needs to happen is, first of all, like I agree, the idea of having a culturally relevant way to support them, both not just financially and the micro grants, but at the same time, material wise and small trainings about how to build and sustain small businesses in and around in the U.S. A lot of cultures like Somalis and Oromo and Hmong, and it's like we have the idea of what needs to happen, but doing the right way, and a lot of the bookkeeping and all of that's what needs to happen, I believe.
Thank you, Cecito. Jamal, would you have anything to add, or Joshua?
Yes. So Cecito said a lot of things that I was going to say, and I very much agree with her. It's having those resources so we can make sure that that the people that are trying to start the small businesses have access to the way to do it right, to make sure that they are following the right way to do it, and they have access to start it. Because during this pandemic, many small businesses are going to fail, and those small business owners are gonna say, okay, I failed because of doing this pandemic. I'm still not gonna give up. I'm gonna start another business, and I'm gonna need more resources than I had last time. So we're gonna need to expand CPED. We're gonna make sure that the big developers actually listen to the needs of the small business owners, and make sure that they have the resources, they have all the needs that they need, and that we actually listen to the community first and not the big developers, and make sure that we protect those small business owners from gentrification, because that's something that it is coming to our neighborhood, to our area, and we need to make sure that there is an equal divide between, yes, expanding and making sure people are being able to have housing, and we expand affordable housing, and not have these multi-million-dollar condos that are catering to out-of-state residents, and protect the people that are actually going to stick around and want to live here for a long period and not just a short term.
Thanks, Joshua. Jamal, you want to wrap up this segment?
Yes, I agree, Joshua. the City Community and Planning and Economic Development Department has outlined a clear objective to aid businesses development and stimulate economic growth, something that is desperately needed, of course, because of the effect of COVID-19 had in our community. I believe the department should be focused on two key areas for inclusion development. Number one being doing a productive work to support minority-owned businesses by connecting them with funding, technical assistance, or navigating city processes. Number two, making sure that the city is consistently reviewing its existing regulation and that the way we are implementing to be sure that small businesses and minority-owned businesses are not being penalized or set back by confusing unfair process regulation. The city has a control over what's developed on CPED, on lots. As we know, we have a lot of lots that are available. We need to be intentional about filling those lots with development that is fit the neighborhood they are in and bring the most valuable to our community. This must be done in consultation with the residents of the neighborhood while catering specifically indigenous people, Black people, people of color, neighbors, and other historical marginalized residents in our ward. Skills training designed for our Black and indigenous of people of color communities is also necessary. We want to ensure that inclusive economic development in our city. I will continue to support and build the skills development necessary in Ward 6 as they prepare for the work in the future. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jamal. I'm now going to pivot to my colleague, Vanessa Haight, Executive Director of EP&I. And group one, I'll just highlight, is going to be AJ, Bihi, and AK, Nabiha, and Mike. Vanessa, take over and bring forward the key question on neighborhood funding. That's an easy one.
Yes, thank you all for your comments on economic development. So switching over to neighborhoods now. My question for you, this first group, will kick us off. So the network of 70 neighborhood organizations across the city provides a vital structure to organize and to activate residents and community stakeholders at a block by block level. How neighborhoods are funded in the future is currently being considered by the City Council. What do you believe the role of neighborhood organizations is, and how do you think they should be funded?
Anyone jump in of you five?
So yeah, let me go ahead with this. Neighborhood organizations are very important in connecting the city, the resources, and the residents. I have been on the board of West Bank Community Coalition and other neighbor organizations. I understand what they do and how important it is that we continue to fund them. However, there are 70 organizations throughout our city, and we have to build the relationship because when you have a neighborhood organization that really engages the residents of that neighborhood, it's actually some sort of a representation of knowing what the needs are, what the issues are, and what the services needed are. So I strongly believe we should not only continue in funding our neighborhood organizations, but also think about increasing those funding. As COVID-19, I know a lot of organizations, neighbor organizations, struggling with COVID-19 resources. I know a lot of organizations struggling from the aftermath of the murdering of George Floyd and what happened. The need is now vary and more important now than ever before. So I think if I am elected, the first thing I will do is to meet the neighbor organization leaders in Ward 6 and not push things down their throat, but sit there and listen and learn what each organization needs, because the needs of each organization varies from one to another. So that's one. The other thing is the most important service they provide, which I really am part of it, is they are the connector. They organize block by block in their neighborhoods. They know where the elders are. They know where the safety is an issue. They know where big corporations or big developments are trying to take over from what is needed. that has been happening there already. So I think there are key stakeholders that we need to sit down with them and listen those people who work day and night hard to work with their residents. And I think it's a mistake not to understand that and go about your business. I think one of my priorities again is to sit down neighbor organizations and listen to them. I know how frustrated they are. I was part of them.
Thank you so much. Who would like to chime in next?
Well, I will. I guess I'll take advantage of that moment. I think we should have public and private partnership than ever now, knowing that we're in a budget crisis. I did read an article that pointed out, I believe the budget is a little over 4 million. And I think you said, Vanessa, that at 2020, it kind of hits a expiration, so to speak, but yet they approved, I think, at least that amount. I'd be very curious to know where that stands right now. We can't afford to have any defunding of this. I look at human services, neighborhood funding. These are primary. There's some of these regulatory departments that we can look at that aren't in that mode, that I think would warrant budgeting, maybe a little tighter. But the one last thing that I'll say is that I do believe if it's not this council, they're definitely leadership. They're wanting to pivot from what was the old NRP model, which was when they were seeing everybody leaving the city, throwing money at it, stopping the bleeding. But I do believe that even before the tragedy that befell us with George Floyd, I think there was notice of the racial disparity. So I think that's something that was already in conversation, and I'd be very curious to see where this budgeting fits right now as we hit this end at 2020.
Thank you. AJ, AK, or Nabiha?
Well, I can jump. Thanks, Vanessa. I think that's a great question. The role of community organizations to provide a stronger voice to the neighborhoods at the at a hyper local level. Neighborhood groups very important, not just for the representation they provide to their local communities, but their flexibility to impact change that reflect specific communities' need. I've served as a resident and elected member of the Jura Village Neighborhood Association for the last 5 years, and through this role, I was able to impact real change at a community level, from sponsoring Michigan Community Garden and through working with the community on safe PV park project, which brought more safety and resource to the community. I do not think we can give neighborhood organizations the tools to thrive, engage residents like we need if we cut their funding, period. I will advocate that we keep our neighborhood organizations strongly funded and make sure they're also given the direction needed at a department level, so that to make sure they're also given the direction needed, and also their boards reflect the diverse communities they serve in order to serve the communities that they serve.
Thank you so much.
AJ, go first. I went first last time. I go first.
I feel like everybody was waiting for me to go.
I can't always jump in first.
I mean, I go first all the time, so I'm no stranger to it. So that's perfectly fine. So I mean, for me, honestly, I mean, neighborhood organizations play a critical role, and I think that was highlighted through the COVID-19 pandemic and the uprising after the murder of George Floyd. And them stepping up, doing the neighborly thing, organizing neighborhood patrols, making sure to be the keeper of their neighbors, shows really the power of that. So when it comes to me being a council member on the city council, I'm fully in support of fully funding neighborhood organizations. But I also understand that not every neighborhood organization is effective, and there might be some problematic ones at the least. But I also know that there's neighborhood organizations like Elliott Park and many others that I've really been pushing the city of Minneapolis to apply a race equity analysis when we're talking about funding the neighborhood associations. And to me, I think that's something that I fully support. We should be, I support the CURA's proposal for neighborhoods that are, for investments to be, or funding to be focused on neighborhoods, associations that are fighting higher displacement pressures, or ones that are combating displacement and trying to eliminate racial inequalities altogether. So for me, when I'm thinking about how we're going to support our neighborhood organizations, the resources should be allocated using that race equity analysis and really making sure that the organizations that are really at the forefront of trying to keep our city and our ward as diverse as it has been, get the proper resources that they need. For me, I know that, you know, over the last 20 years, the city has really been giving a lot of incentives to homeowners. And that's really oftentimes white homeowners who benefit from those incentives. And neighborhood organizations like that may not necessarily require the same amount of funding that, you know, neighborhoods like Cedar Riverside or Elliott Park or, you know, Ventura Village maybe. So for me, my focus on actually when we're talking about how we're going to be funding neighborhood organizations, again, I stand fully to support them, but I also am in support of, you know, supporting the CURA's plan proposal, and like Elliott Park Neighborhood Association and others, really advocating for that race equity analysis and, you know, allocating funding.
Thank you. Nabiha, you want to wrap us up on this one?
Absolutely, yeah, sure. So what I do want to say is that Minneapolis does pride itself as a progressive city. However, as we know, Minneapolis ranks in the bottom of racial equality. The COVID-19 pandemic and the recent civil unrest showed the deep divisions among our residents. But regardless of race, the challenges facing our city can be addressed if we are serious about creating a more perfect union. Neighborhood organizations play a very important role in bubbling up concerns that are facing our specific neighborhoods. Unfortunately, as we know, some neighborhoods are more vocal, thus get more resources for their, they get more funding for their neighborhoods, and the less organized neighborhoods get less funding. If we are serious about addressing the racial and other inequalities, the city of Minneapolis must provide funding as well as other resources in a more equitable manner so that communities that are less organized can get the funding that they need. For example, the previous city council members and the mayor proposed an African village market in Minneapolis, Ward 6. While it's a great idea in theory, the various neighborhoods within the ward were not engaged and did not fully participate in the planning phase. Therefore, if we are serious about giving more voice to the communities, we must ensure that communities' needs are addressed from the bottom instead of top down, and funding is provided in a more equitable manner. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we'll switch over to group 2. Same question. I'll read it again for you. So we have Sue, Jamal, Alex, Joshua, and Sacido. So the question again is, the network of 70 neighborhood organizations across the city provides a vital structure to organize and activate residents and community stakeholders at a block level. How neighborhoods are funded in the future is currently being considered by City Council. What do you believe the role of neighborhood organizations is, and how do you think they should be funded? Who would like to kick us off?
Yeah, if I start, thank you very much for that question. I believe our city neighborhood organizations play a key role when it comes to improving the lives of our communities, and they play a key role, and I believe we should support them. Yes, we do need the neighborhood organizations because they engage with city neighbors and build a bridge between neighborhoods to the city. That's important. Like providing housing assistance, organizing local cleanups events, the art events, running drug prevention campaigns, and many more that are vital to our city. You know, however, the city population has become more diverse since the city started funding those programs to up to 70 neighborhood organizations in the early 90s. I believe if you're an organization and you're being funded through the taxes from the city of Minneapolis, then you need to community organizations to reflect the communities that they represent. which is extremely important. And residents of Minneapolis should walk into a neighborhood organization and be able to participate. Yes, we need to diversify the board membership, which I believe is extremely important to get things done for our city. And I strongly believe the reason I get the Health and Human Service Award was I was focused on these issues in a city level, state level, and national level. That's why I was in, that should be an article I wrote. I was talking about the extreme poverty that's going on, the federal dollar money that we give to foreign countries, why it's important. When President Trump says, I'm going to cut it, I wrote an op-ed to Star Tribune. I said, our senators, our delegation, whether you're Republican, Democrat, these are important for American generosity. Same thing, if you elect me, I'll do the same thing in the city hall. And I believe it's important we support neighborhood organizations. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
With all due respect, I'm going to jump in here and say that the effective support of neighborhood associations and neighborhood organizations has a lot to do with the scope in which we talk about them. And so if the scope is too big, it becomes inefficient, right? Neighborhood organizations have very specific roles. Number one, as I see it, they should be hubs for public safety, right? What does this mean? It means capacity training for block and neighborhood watch groups. It means prioritizing snow and ice removal, for example. As Sue mentioned, neighborhood cleanups are great as well. Another thing that is a priority is making sure that neighborhood associations are hubs for public health, right? So eventually we're going to have greater testing available, and neighborhood associations should have access to those things. And other point of contact testing, for example, I have done HIV testing, right? That's what I do for work. And I've done it in conjunction with some of the neighborhood organizations. And it's wonderful to be able to provide these sort of life-saving resources right there in your neighborhood, where you don't really have to go anywhere except call your neighborhood association and get that service that you desperately need. Because it's going to save lives at this point. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We can't understate the role of public health in this time. Also, resource centers, right? As Saido shared earlier, sometimes it's really difficult to know where to turn, how to get a license, how to get funding, how to connect with your neighbors to create a neighborhood watch party, for example. And neighborhood associations need all the support that we can provide them so that they can then provide those resources to the residents of the ward. But let me be clear, one thing that no one has mentioned yet is that neighborhood associations don't have a dedicated liaison between the council and that organization and the residents served by that organization. And I believe that is the single most important thing that we can do for neighborhood associations, is to provide a dedicated liaison who will be the bridge between these two bodies, therefore making communication more effective between the two, and being able to provide resources that are tailored to those specific neighborhoods. So that, I think, is something that has not been brought up, and I would love to be the one to implement.
Thank you so much.
And so jumping off of what Alex had to say, that liaison would even help create equity between those smaller neighborhood organizations as well, that don't have as much resources at the moment towards helping out this community, like others have said before. But we need to expand those resources and make it equitable, so even the smaller neighborhoods have those resources to focus on community safety and community health. Two big things that are going to be taken precedent during the pandemic and during the unrest too. We're talking about defunding the police, and a lot going to community organizations towards community safety. As a member of my neighborhood watch and who has been out night after night dealing with issues with regards to police brutality, with incidents on calls, to breaking up fights and all kinds of different incidents, having sustainable funding towards those community organizations so we can actually make the community take part in protecting and helping the neighborhood, and not putting it on a force that may be racist, aggressive, and not actually for the people.
Thank you.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello to you also. Yes, I agree with everything that we just talked about. Just wanted to add, because I serve the Neighborhood Community Engagement Commission, our role was to work with neighborhood organizations. And now that we have 70 neighborhood organizations that are representing 80 something residential neighborhoods. And basically what I see them as the neighborhood organizations funding, there's no question about should we fund them or not. Because honestly speaking, before I joined the Neighborhood Community Engagement Commission, I did not know the importance of neighborhood organizations and what they do. But through that agency or through that commission, I learned the amount of work that our neighborhood organizations do. And we don't even fund them enough. The only thing I wanted to add is that I want to see more diversity in our neighborhood organizations. It's something that I wanted to see. Definitely Elliott Park neighborhood and West Bank would not be the same, because in terms of a demographic, it's totally different neighborhoods and totally different groups live. So definitely they won't be the same. But then I want to see more cultural representation. That's one area. But their role is very clear. They are the thread that holds both the city and the community together. And without them, I don't think we would have that. It's a both ways street. So definitely I am for it, and I wanted to make sure that I just highlight that.
Thank you. Jamal, do you want to add something before we move to closing?
Yes, I think we all agree that neighborhood organization is very, very important. But someone who has worked in neighborhood organizations and have been a board member for the last 15 years in different neighborhoods in our community, that I believe neighborhood organizations' roles should vary by neighbor. I believe that neighborhood organizations in lower income areas with a strong history of redlining and other institutional racism policies in greater, in a way that that institutional racism and policies have a greater expected workloads. We expect workloads, and other funding reflect that if the work targets those issues. So, for example, in Ward 6, environmental justice is something that I see many of our neighborhood organizations playing in a huge role. All you need to do is take a quick trip to the south and see Ward 13 and Ward 12 and or Ward 11. To see that not every ward is impacted by environmental justice issues the way we are here in Ward 6. In Ward 6, on behalf of our urgent resident neighborhood groups organize clean sweeps, pick up trash, and beautify our neighborhood. I know they also lobbied the city council for green energy investments, so those are very important. And I will say that many of our Ward 6 neighborhood organizations also help our most vulnerable population with the housing and public safety. This is not the case that every neighborhood outside Ward 6. We all know that Ward 6 needs a lot of work. The current funding for neighborhoods is subsidized through the state. That is preaching the end of its end of life. COVID-19 reduced the city budget and will continue to have impact of the revenue, but we cannot ignore the disparate and negative impact of COVID-19 that had Ward 6. I think it's vital that we give our neighbors organizations enough funding so that they can help in our community and help many years to come. So thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right, we are ready to go with the lightning round. 1 minute final cap off speeches, everybody. So flex your muscles a little bit. Let's see if we can do it. And let's start with AJ Awed. What's your 1 minute wrap up to have people vote for you?
Okay, Viva, were we not getting to the third question or?
No, we're rolling.
Okay, beautiful. Well, so thank you for having us. For me, you know, I believe that my campaign is the only campaign that, again, is deeply rooted in community. I've been quoted in the past saying that I've been pressured by the community to really get involved and obviously try to vie for leadership here and trying to make sure that all their voices are heard. I believe I'm the only candidate that has a strong backing from Somali mothers in the East African community that are really struggling with the death of their own children at the hands of opioids. And for me, when we're talking about what community and in community means, it means that the community actually wants you. I know that my brother, he's been in the community for a long time, but at the same time, it's under the watch of, you know, 20 years, going on to 3 decades now that the community has been deteriorating. And from what I hear on the campaign trail, and from what I hear from many people on the streets, whether it's the East African community or whether it's the community at large, they're really looking for a next generation of leadership that is going to be able to bring in the policy questions that really matter, that's going to effectively represent the community at large, and that's going to be able to be competent enough to bridge the gaps between communities and the different diverse neighborhoods in the city. So I urge all Ward 6 residents to please, you know, do your homework in this race. I believe that when it comes to the issues that many of the campaigns that are highlighting, I believe that many of those issues, our campaign really led strong on, and making sure to set the tone on what the community really actually wants from this election, and making sure to hold myself accountable first and foremost, but also trying to set the tone to make sure hold city council at large and making sure that we change the narrative of what we're talking about. Again, we're talking about abolishing the police. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. No, that's passionate, but we got to keep it rolling.
I could have kept on going, Dan. I could have kept
on
going.
No, that's good. Okay. One generation speaking to the next. Bihi, you're up.
There you go. There you go.
I thank my brother AJ for the nice and warm comments. I just wanted to say that yes, he's right. I have the 2 decades of experience of really doing the work. And not only that, living in the ward. I did not move to the ward. I don't have just the address. I live here 24 years, and I also work here 24 years, engaging in employment, social services, skills training. I have a goal of 2040. Our baby boomers are retiring. We need labor. We need trained labor. We don't want to continue to see 27% unemployment in the East African community. We don't want to see 9 or 10% in the African American community or people of color. We want to pay for trainings like we have done with other organizations such as Emerge and Summit Academy, train young people in construction, in electrician, carpentry, healthcare, IT. We need to create the next force. Also, my other passion is it's unacceptable to see our city full of tents. 40% of those homeless communities are working and they have a job, but they can't afford the rent. I want to put a cap on the rent. I'm a renter and I live with thousands of people and see the riverside of renters. I understand what the pain is. The last one, I want to create that partnership of the business community in downtown and our neighbor organizations working together, seeing those young people who are unemployed straight from college, get a job, get them in jobs in downtown, and see a lot of people of color wearing a tie, eating a lunch in downtown, and working those big buildings. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. A.K. Hassan.
Well, thank you so much. COVID-19 has exposed that our public systems are ill-equipped to protect renters, workers, and the unsheltered. The public safety debate in our city and across the country after the killing of George Floyd has further shown that how far we have to go to protect Black and brown bodies from police brutality. We can do better for our vulnerable communities And now is an opportunity to bring a radical, more progressive agenda to the Minneapolis City Council. By advocating for our small businesses, investing in public housing, advocating for our unsheltered homeless community, and investment in the opioid response, we'll work to deliver economic opportunity, health, and safety to all our Ward 6 residents. I am proud to have been endorsed by our Bernie Sanders organization, Our Revolution, our from Minnesota, the largest LGBTQ organization, and by our Hennepin County Commissioner, Angela Conley. I'm humbly asking for your support, and I'm happy to speak with anyone who have any questions before August 11. You can call my cell phone number at 612-986-6819. Again, that's 612-986-6819. Thank you so much to the neighbor organization, to the East Side Business, and thank you so much, everyone. I can now wait to earn your support. If you can, if I can earn you first, will be great. If not, your second will be good.
Thanks, AK. Really
Thank you so much,
appreciate it.
and everyone. Have a good night.
Yes. Nabiha Mohammed.
So I do want to point out here, as someone who grew up in New York City, I see our diversity as an asset. I'm comfortable working with people of all walks of life. During my military service, I learned the value of differences as a strength and not a weakness. From Phillips West to Cedar Riverside, from Seward to Stevens Square, from Elliott Park to Ventura Village, I will be a representative for all the people of Minneapolis Ward 6. I have put together the largest coalition, which include white Americans, African Americans, Native Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, and all new Americans. In my campaign, I have volunteers from every race and creed, as well as every age group. I, as a community activist and a progressive Democrat, I am intimately familiar with the many challenges that are facing the residents of Ward 6, and I have been an advocate for them. Therefore, I believe I will be ready day one to represent the constituents of Ward 6 in Minneapolis City Council. And please, let's not forget the residents who are currently sleeping outside in the open in the various parks throughout our city. Let's keep them in our prayers and try to do better and create programs that can house them immediately. So for the residents of Ward 6, I politely ask for your vote, ranked choice. If I'm not your first, put me second. I want to thank everyone who organized this forum tonight and all of the fellow candidates who are in attendance. Thank you and have a great evening.
Thanks so much, Nabiha. I appreciate that. Suad Olat. Still muted. There we go.
Thank you very much, Dan. And I want to take this opportunity to say thank you, the Elliott Park neighborhood and the organizers for this beautiful event tonight. You know, my fellow neighbors, thanks for hosting this important forum. We are living in unprecedented time. City of Minneapolis needs a new leadership, new sensible ideas, new generation leadership. Some of the issues that I will address are public safety, role in police, affordable housing, and the most important, my experience advocating in a national level. I want to, as I said in my Tribune interview, I want to bring my global perspective and ideas to local level. When I saw the challenges, we have a vibrant community. Despite what is happening in our beautiful city, we can still do better. And I believe there's a hope and an inspiration. I wanted to inspire the business community so that they can come to Minneapolis, believe that they can continue the investing and bringing more jobs to our neighborhoods. That's who I want to be in the city hall. I was, you know, the halls of Congress advocating for world's most poorest. Now I will be an advocate, someone who can build a bridge between the rich and the poor so that we can get things done for our city. And I believe we can do that. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Suad. Really appreciate that. Jamal Osman.
All right. Thank you so much for hosting us tonight. It's not an easy job, but I believe my experience and my background of working in the community for 15 years suits me well to do the job. It's a lot of challenges, but I can do the job. And I want you to trust me with your vote. It's everyone's interest to have a strong city with government that affection as well. We must work together no matter where you live and what background you came from. to ensure Minneapolis continues to be the economic engine of the state. Businesses, whether a small neighborhood or a large downtown corporation, along with hospitals, universities, and nonprofit faith communities, and the city government must all continue to work to keep the entire city strong and livable while prioritizing equality that has long been missing. I ask for your support, and I look forward working with you all should I be elected. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Jamal. Appreciate that. Alex Palacios.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, Dana, for hosting us tonight. This has been fascinating, all right, because we're not just talking about the things that move us forward. We're talking about addressing the issues in the present. And we can spend time creating further division, or we can spend time working together for the greater good of both the ward and the city at large. That means it's going to take all of us, right? Left and right, Phillips to Cedar, young and old, to work together towards more accessible and affordable housing, towards discussing, the plans laid out for Portland and Park that are well underway, to make sure that along with beautification, right, and bringing nice things to our neighborhoods, we're also focusing on not displacing our neighbors and those people who are most vulnerable at the moment. We didn't address tourism. This is a vibrant neighborhood, a great intersection with lots of flavors that represent the city of Minneapolis. There's a way to prioritize tourism and to bring in revenue without having our neighbors suffer for it. And finally, we need to invest again in neighborhood associations. We need to invest in sustainability. And what does that mean? That means that education is not going to save us, and seeing things as one-sided isn't going to save us. What's going to save us is the inclusion of all the voices within our community, and I believe I am best suited to represent those voices. Thank you so much for letting me make my case, and I hope that you will go to the polls and rank me #1. Please visit alexforward6.com to find out more. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Joshua.
Yes, thank you, Dan, Vanessa, and Dana for hosting this. And I want to thank everyone for participating in this popcorn forum. It is a very interesting way to do it, and I really like the variety in conversations and being able to talk about the issues and bounce the ideas off of each other and not just stick to a predefined script. I urge everyone to rank me as your #1 choice, if not #2, to this ranked choice voting election. And you can visit my website, joshforward6.com. That is Josh, J-O-S-H, 4, F-O-R, ward6.com to learn more about my platform and the issues. And again, I want to thank everyone and have a great night.
Thanks so much, Joshua. Appreciate that. Mike, I'm sorry. Cecito Shy, please.
Yes. Hi. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Dana and Vanessa and Dan. As a Black woman, a mother, a community organizer, I have been to this community serving for over 20 years. I rarely see people like myself representing the city hall or a government in general. I am running because Minneapolis needs to come to terms with the inequalities present in our community. I've always served my community. When you work with the community the way I have, you are first to see all the issues and all the barriers that residents of Ward 6 face. You see the need in the community, and for the longest time, I tried to address them. but not easy. At every turn, every turn I took, the suit made me realize that if I want to make a change, I know what this community needs, need and deserve. I need to be able to make a decision at the table. This is what inspired me to run. I have spent years of my life fighting for the city, and as your council member, I will not stop fighting. Please support me and elect me. I ask for your vote. Rank me as your one choice. For more information, go to saido.com.
Saido, thank you
for having me.
Thank you very much for those comments. Mike Doherty, you're the final person to offer your final reflections.
Okay, I'll hit it quick. Thanks, Dan, and thanks, Dana and Vanessa as well, again, for your efforts. Two things that I feel to get into as far as what's concrete is obviously the redevelopment of Lake Street. That to me is a big priority. You can measure affordable housing in how you redevelop. There's a concern that it could be gentrified by investors coming in. We have to be very concerned about this. I think the mixture of commercial and residential is something we should really, really push on Lake Street. Knowing that East LA, that befell the same kind of trouble, really hasn't come back yet. And that's concerning. That was in the 90s. So that's a real pivotal issue. Law enforcement, I hit on that as well. Just to quickly say, from my vantage point, the existing chief commands a great respect. I would like to see more of a voice in how police chief sees us going forward. I think it's pretty safe to say that as maybe cooler heads are prevailing, we're questioning about changing the charter. I just right now, I would find it very difficult to be a police officer. And I felt that for some time. But just knowing where our city is, I think is such a big concern. And I'm hearing more and more and seeing examples almost daily of how this is something that we need to really focus on. So those are the two things I just wanted to say that just kind of got into some.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And thank you to all of you who have spent the night with us as candidates for Ward 6. As someone who values relationship with all of the council members of the city, but especially Ward 6 and others in downtown, I am grateful. Vanessa, I'll hand it to you to wrap up any final comments you have, and we will sign off here in a minute.
Great, sounds good. Yes, I thank you all for being here and taking the time to share with us. I think it was a really wonderful conversation. So thank you again, I appreciate it. And thanks to our audience for tuning in. We'll also be sharing this as a recording so folks can watch it later, which will be super helpful. A big thanks to Dan in making this happen, and Dana, and everyone at the Minneapolis Downtown Council for all the support, putting this together. And I look forward to the election on August 11th, as I'm sure you all do too. Best of luck, good night, and thank you again.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
Night.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care, good luck.
Thank you, guys.